All right, here I am live. This is the first time I've ever gone live without the guests on the screen. So something new, a little something to try out. And I figured these two amazing guests that I have would be more than happy to be guinea pigs on being backstage on this first attempt to talk to you all before the guests come on. I am Matthew Portell. I am the host of the Trauma Informed Educators Network podcast and the founder of the Trauma Informed Educators Network. But more importantly, I'm here just to tell you about our conference. It's happening June 15th and 16th in Nashville, Tennessee, the Trauma Informed Educators Network Conference. And it is a little gathering, a scrappy little conference, a gathering of what I refer to as disruptors. So over 300 fellow disruptors are coming together as we learn together around PACEs science, positive and adverse childhood experiences. Around the science, we connect to best practices, we connect to each other, and ultimately we leave with relationships and a bigger network of people who are passionately involved in this work or wanting to become involved in this work. So if you have not registered for the Trauma Informed Educators Network Conference, please do so. And I think that's why this episode is super exciting, because the guests on this episode are partners with us on the conference. So I am so excited for you all to hear from the founder of oh my goodness, my brain, Parkhill. I'm going to bring you up because my brain just went. STOPit Solutions, and the founder of the creator of an amazing app called HELPme. HELPme app from STOPit Solutions. So Parkhill and Kerrie, how are you all? I am so excited that you are here. And welcome to the Trauma Informed Educators Network podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. And how about me not being able to get out STOPit Solutions? We've been partners for a long time. And see, this is what happens when you try to do something new. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have you all there. It threw me off. But either way, I'm really glad.
We're all good.
I'm really glad you all are here. And like every guest that comes on this podcast, I want to ask you both, Kerrie and Parkhill, tell us about you. What's your story?
Okay, I'll go. So my story is I love to help schools keep their students safe. I love to help families keep their children safe. That's what we do. I think our why, my why, goes back to actually the founding of our company. Was founded on the heels of a terrible event. It happened to a family who was very close to our founders. Her name was Amanda. She took her own life about 9 years ago. And as you don't need to be told, Matthew, there are hundreds, thousands of other stories like that around the country. We followed some others that are close to our organization. David Molak in Texas, which ultimately led to David's Law. Mallory Grossman here in New Jersey led to Mallory's Law. And all these had to do with terrible events where, kids have hurt themselves and other mental health problems. So that's my why. That's my story. That's why I'm CEO of STOPit. Nationally speaking, everyone's why are the things that you're reporting on in mental health, and those things that are just, COVID has exposed mental health. These issues have been out there for a long time, but COVID has helped to expose that. So I think that's everyone's why right now. So hopefully that helps on why I'm here.
Yeah, thank you. And how many times has flowers come out of tragedy, has great things come out of tragedy. And I think that that's the way we honor some tragedy that you even just spoke of, that this came out of a tragedy that there is a serious need of support along all sectors, but especially in schools. So there's those opportunities to take action. And we appreciate that you and your company and organization are taking action, because the action is needed. Kerrie, welcome. Tell us about you. Awesome.
Well, I am Kerrie Ackerson, and my why definitely revolves around my kids, my foster kids and guardianship kids, and my son, but also really thinking back when I was a little person. I was, if you follow me on Twitter, I was saved by a teacher. When I was in second grade, my brother was killed by another teen, and I was removed from school for a while. And then my who became my third grade teacher, she really just took me under her wing and allowed me to grieve and be the little person that I was while being unconditionally loved by her. And she truly saved me. I don't want to overlook my bus driver, who was also critically important in my healing. But really, that's my why. I want to make sure I was well taken care of, right? So I had I had adverse conditions, yes, adverse things, but I had positive ones as well. And I want to make sure kids like my kids, who maybe start life with a lot of adversity, are not re-traumatized by the school as another system. So that's really my why, and why I started working with STOPit Solutions as a school safety company, and why I'm trying to and helping them move into really more of a healing centered approach to school safety.
You know, and you said a lot there, and I think it's important that you mentioned the power of the positive experience. And I think a lot of times we get caught in the adversity and we get caught in the impact of the adversity, but rarely do we ever talk about the impact of the positive support and interactions and opportunities that come for adults, right? We have the opportunity, and Karen Treisman, who is a child psychologist in the UK, says that every interaction can be an intervention. And I think that is so powerful when we talk about those positive experiences. So let's get into I know, Parkhill, you gave us a little bit of background, but tell us more about STOPit Solutions and where you started from and where you are and where you're going towards.
Sure, absolutely. Very simply, we help schools keep their students safe. That's what we do. What we've done is you've taken traditional techniques and you've modernized them, giving a child a way to reach out for help using a mobile phone, a smartphone, or if you don't have one, a website, or if you really don't have one, or you're an adult, maybe the phone. So 3 ways to report. A very, very, very natural thing for kids to do is to type with their thumbs, and they will do things much faster that way and sooner than they will any other way. They don't like law enforcement. They don't like authority. So that's all we've done is we've brought what should be a natural thing, reaching out and asking for help, to the modern day, the contemporary way. And on the other end of that, we provide school administrators the ability to respond to that quickly and easily. And then we've got this layer of wonderful people called a crisis center. Our people, well-trained, in some very important practices, sitting in between, looking for emergencies, looking for ways to help, making sure that any emergency is dealt with pronto, not the next school day, not after holiday break, not after summer break, pronto. So that crisis center is a very important aspect on top of our technology to make sure that kids in need are getting immediate help. So that's kind of the basic transaction on what we do. And we support about 7,500 schools nationwide and growing, thanks to good people like Kerrie and some other very devoted folks to keeping us relevant and pivoting. It's not all about school safety. It's about asking for help now. And that's a little bit of a different message. So we're trying to react, to those changes.
And I think you were right when you said that COVID exposed a lot. And I think right now more than ever that people are not only willing, but now the conversation is happening around supporting the mental health of not just adults, but our kids. And I can tell you, I have an 11-year-old that has a lot of angst and anxiety around and I don't know if it wasn't necessarily that way before the pandemic, but it certainly is now. And I think about the way kids operate now, and especially we all know that I think they call them keyboard heroes, right? People can type and say things they would never say out loud or in public. And I think there is another side to that where people can advocate for help in a way that feels safe to them, because everybody doesn't want to walk into a school counselor's office. Everybody doesn't want to walk into a therapy session. Everybody doesn't want to walk into a space where what you have built and provided is a logical next step for supporting kids, communities, adults with the device that nearly everyone has and feels comfortable operating. And so, I mean, I think it just makes remarkable sense.
We think so. And, we had this beautiful person at the bottom of the screen who's kind of helped us stay relevant, to the issues that are occurring. I mean, that was really our, aha moment. Is it's not always about safety. It's about your own safety, and you don't call it safety, you call it reaching out for help. So, Kerrie's helped us reshape that message that kind of underscores the need for diversity. And, look, if you have a bunch of founders running a product for years, the thing gets stale, or the message gets stale, or you kind of reach the same audience and not a new audience. That's what Kerrie's done for us.
And Kerrie, let's talk about your role and how did you come about with STOPit, and especially this HELPme app. Tell us about how this all came about, because I think what I hear Parkhill saying is you brought some fire, and I don't know if you know, but the listeners know I bring fire because that's what we want, right? We want to make sure we're doing what is needed for all kids and all communities and all people. So how did you come about into STOPit Solutions?
Well, so I'm big with, disruptors unite, right? So I love being a disruptor. I love stepping out of the box, but my primary job is serving as a worker at an educational service agency. And just big shout out to everybody who works at educational service agencies. You're so helpful to smaller districts, especially. And so some of my member districts at the Educational Service Agency said, we're getting money for school safety. We need to know the best anonymous reporting service out there. Do some research and find that out. And so I really went through this whole 4 years ago, went through this process of researching companies, talking to their customers, and just trying to find out who people liked. And STOPit, to be frank, I had never heard of them. They came up, though, in my state, in Wisconsin, as certainly the most popular and had the most customers and the most satisfied customers. And so I've reached out to them, and I said, our state is giving away $100 million in school safety money. And I want to talk to you because I've done research on you, and we would, like to write you into some grants. And that's really how that's how I got to know them. I found out that their platform was wonderful. Gives local people the choice of keeping information local. I think sometimes when a state law enforcement entity takes on an anonymous reporting system, the local decision-making is taken out of it. And I just didn't love that. I liked the idea that locals could make the decision of when to call law enforcement, when to escalate things, et cetera. And what we get is a ton of data, right? So what the data was showing is 80 to 90% of the, I'm air quoting this, tips were asking for help in some way. And so if we have a tip line in which 80 to 90% of the tips are asking for help, why don't we reshape that?
Right.
And put a helpline out there. Take all of that stigma away and say, hey, this is anonymous. You only have to tell us as much information as it will take us to help you. And we know, so I got involved with, as I said, I've been a contractor consultant with STOPit for about 4 years. And about 2 years ago, I got very involved with the idea of recreating the platform. The platform itself is brilliant. All I had to do was re-wallpaper it and just make it in a way that was both preserve the dignity and privacy of people who may be asking for help, be those people staff at a school, families who are experiencing crisis in any way, and kids as well.
I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, and here's the thing. I think in education, we call that a data-driven decision, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, if it's showing that people are asking for help, then let's figure out how to give them the help they need. And I do agree, Kerrie, and that when you pull out, especially government-based agencies, right, there is a natural distrust in a lot of communities by all means, for good reason, right? Yeah. And I think that when you take that piece out, and this is someone that isn't tied to an organization that is going to report me as a bad parent, which unfortunately schools get drawn into so often, where because we're mandated reporters, we get drawn into, oh, well, I think this is happening, so I have to report it. And again, there's a lot of context in there. There's racial context, there's social context, there's socioeconomic context. But if you have a resource like this where parents can call for themselves or call for their child, or the child can call for themselves, self-advocacy is the best process, right?
Right. And we want to teach both students and parents that asking for help is a life skill. It's funny. I came about this in a roundabout way when I took in my son. He was quite young and had been living in his car for a while. And as I said, had a very serious trauma background. And he no matter how much he needed help, he wouldn't ask for it. And he assumed that people would dislike him, harm him, shame him. And that is how oftentimes people feel when they've taken a risk and asked for help, and they have been met with, I guess, even a response they didn't expect. And that's why on the HELPme app, we give you a choice on how would you like us to help, right? So first of all, powerful. What is the situation? Someone needs food. Someone needs counseling. Someone needs transportation. But then how would you like that person to be helped? It might just be, I just wanted you to know this. I just wanted you to have this information. It might be, I'd like you to contact me back anonymously. It allows for two-way anonymous texting. So it leaves the live person, but it takes out the personality, just in case there's a bad feeling there. And then it might be, please check in with this young person, or it could be something as simple as just handle with care today. And what a great thing to know as a school about a student who may be staring out the window or may just seem off. And before that student gets told, hey, get back here, come back to class, rather someone would reach them and say, hey, are you okay today? And just really, treat them with the care that they deserve, because, maybe they were up all night on a domestic violence issue, or, maybe their parents are going through a divorce or whatever. We want parents to know that the school can help. And I mean, we are at a time of unlimited almost resources, right? It's so unusual that schools have a ton of resources. So now that we have a ton of resources, and schools and communities do as well, it's the linkage that becomes critical. So let's make that linkage intuitive, user-friendly, all in one place, and let's teach both kids and parents how to use it, and that asking for help is important, it's courageous, it's okay, and it's a life skill.
I mean, that's a huge task that you all have taken on. I mean, I'm serious. Like, this is a paradigm shift. Yes, I said it. Of the societal norms, right? That you are saying, not only is it okay, but we have a platform to do that on. And we have people who are going to honor and respect you as a human being. Because let's be honest, what you're asking people to do is driven from societal standpoints, a lot in shame. Yes. And we're saying, trust us, we've got your back. How do you want us to move forward? How do you want us to support? Bringing the dignity back and the humanization of mental health and the need for support, or how do you proceed forward? And I think dignity is something we have to understand, and in schools, and Kerrie, you know this as well as I do, in Parkhill, you probably do too. We lose a lot of dignity in schools. Kids lose a lot of dignity. Parents lose a lot of their dignity and trust because they have to have conversations, and there's a lot of judgment behind what happens in schools towards parents and kids, right? Until we all become trauma informed, which is why we're trying to have this podcast. So what do you see? What is the outcome you are hoping to accomplish by creating this under STOPit Solutions for either of you?
Well, I'll tell you, one outcome is obviously we want it to help. We want it to help within the context of the message that's out there now. And that message is there's a lot of mental health issues going on. I'm not convinced we had the solution. We certainly had the solution to address them. I'm not sure we had the solution that people wanted with that extreme theme that is now overtaken schools. So we want schools to be aware of it. We want schools to use it, and we want the feedback. I'm the one responsible for making the business end work, the operations end work. The security is very important these days. You're dealing with sensitive information from children. So we want the feedback. What we've had to do, Matthew, is we've had to sort of change the messaging, that crisis center, if you will, working a school safety crisis, an external threat, entirely different thing from working an internal threat. Because you have issues like suicidal ideation, depression, drugs and alcohol and those things, which they're now equipped to handle. So we've had to change the operation to keep up with this little change in angle that we're approaching the market. So the objectives are to have schools, in particular, the mental health side of the house, the side of the house that's away from maybe the security director or the technology director or student services. We would like the other side of the house to gain value from it and continue to provide feedback so we can keep shaping it, making it better and better and better. That's the goal.
You know, and I hear, and I heard what you just said, and I think there's so much power in what you're trying to accomplish. And it makes me think of a story, and I'm going to be honest, I don't even know who told me this, but they were telling me about their experience. Oh, yes, I do. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but they were telling me about their daughter's experience of having to, a fellow student, having to help another child navigate a very complex traumatic situation that they were experiencing outside of school because she was the safe person for that other student. And my thought automatically went to, what if the child who I know their parent, if that child would have said, you know what, this is a lot. Let's call HELPme together. Let's contact HELPme together. I'm going to sit here with you, but let's talk with somebody together. Because so many times kids are trying to support and help other kids through crises that you and myself and Kerrie and other professionals might not even know how to help kids through. And I think, again, what you said earlier, it has so much power of kids know how to use devices. Kids are connected in that way. And so if it becomes norm where, wow, they're having to deal with something, I can either report that they need help, or I can tell them, hey, let's sit down and just find out what we can do. How powerful.
In a real life situation, I want to just give a little bit of a shout out to my niece. Her name is Nairi. When she was 12 or 13 maybe, and I was working with STOPit, she called and she said, Auntie, can I get the name of that company you work with for when people want to commit suicide? And I immediately stopped being the cool aunt and just freaked out because that was a very concerning question for me. And her school does not use an anonymous reporting platform at all. And they certainly weren't using STOPit. And I said, honey, you have to give me more information. You need to talk with me or your mom and dad. Well, she was at a camp, so she couldn't talk to her mom and dad. But she said, no, it's not a big deal. I do this all the time. I'm the one who always helps my friends when they want to commit suicide. And that it scared me and it hurt me. And she said, but I'm really concerned about this one person because I'm in the camp and I can't go help them. And I thought, my little niece is carrying this on her heart. And what if somebody she's helping harms themselves? And what kind of trauma would that cause in her life? And so between her and then my son, and not wanting any student ever to sleep in their car and be hungry over the weekend because they would not walk to the elementary school and carry a child's backpack full of food that they couldn't cook anyways because they didn't have a stove. And so thinking of him sitting in his car on weekends and starving because it was more important to him to retain his dignity. I never, ever want that to be a reason that kids don't reach out for help, and parents either. And so what I believe, and Matthew, I know you believe this, is if we can help parents feel like, okay, the school is a safe place. The school is not another system that is looking to harm me. At least I can contact them anonymously. Hopefully what we'll do is we'll have more kids that get assistance, more parents that get assistance when they need basic life essentials, food, shelter, transportation, medical care. And I want to bring up therapy because we never, of course, want someone to get a request or a report that they can't handle. And I work with a lot of small schools. And so if they get something that says, I'm very worried, I need some mental health therapy for a young person who has a fascination with guns or whatever the concern is, we don't have mental health professionals up here that you can get into for an assessment for weeks or months. And so in this case, we partnered up with eTherapy so that they could at least quickly provide an assessment, a four-session assessment of that child to really get to know, does this young person have access to weapons? What's going on with them? And then what might be a good way forward? And so we just felt like that was a critical piece of this, is to be able to provide that. And I see that the SDAC resilience team gave a shout out, and they deserve a shout out as well. On the app, we use content that was created by SDAC and by their experts in neuroresilience to teach little people about their brains and about how their brains affect their behavior and about how normal it is. It's normal, right? Because the last thing you want a student to feel when they've already gone through a traumatic situation is that they are somehow different, other, or wrong or bad. They've felt that way their whole life. We don't need to make them feel that way. And so SDAC put together a ton of great content for the app to teach about the different parts of the brain and what we can do to regulate them and how we can work together, and that it's all normal. And you're totally normal. And this is just the way you feel, the way you do, and we can work together and you can control that brain of yours. And I'm hoping that younger kids and parents learn more about the brain. As you know, I am a huge Bruce Perry junkie, right? And so I really deeply believe that that brain science is important for everybody to understand themselves, and it's certainly helped me. And so we wanted to put it on the app, and Parkhill and STOPit have a system again that we can add anything to. It's a brilliant platform, and so we were able to use the SDAC neuroresilience content, and very thankful for that. So shout out to them for all the great work they do in Kansas.
Well, shout out to you for creating it, Kerrie. You know, you're the one that put the wireframes around how it would work. You did it, and the vision was to create this place on a very comfortable device where kids would go, where families would go, where parents and even staff would go to get help and have access to resources that, you know, who do you call for these obscure things? Well, you can get it all right there. That was your creation. We thank you for that.
And Kerrie, we know your brilliance, and I think Parkhill just mentioned it, and it's utilizing the connections in the networks of people to make sure you're providing support on a big scale. And we, you know, I'm a huge SDAC fan. Matter of fact, Rebecca was on this podcast, and ironically, I spoke to her today about going through some of the trainings that they've got going, because at the end of the day, you're right. We have to take different approaches in different spaces. And I even go back and I think, in my time as the previous 7 years as a principal, how many parents that I would have tell me, Portel, yes, I want to get those services, but I have no way of getting there.
Mm-hmm.
I have no way. I don't have a car right now, or I'm already working and I don't that is, to me, that's another piece of this puzzle, that accessibility,
Mm-hmm.
right, is a privilege in a lot of places and spaces. You know, if I have a struggle, I can reach out, I can go to an appointment, I can make an appointment and arrive and be there. But that is a privilege for a lot of people, and a lot of people don't have that opportunity. And so think about a school providing these, not just for in school, because healthy communities breed healthy schools, breed healthy children,
Right.
breed a healthy environment, right? So imagine when I hear all the time, and I know, Kerrie, you probably have heard me say this, I've heard educators say, I'm not a therapist. I've never been trained as a therapist. I don't know what to do. Well, it's pretty easy. This is what you do. You just provide the resource for your kids, your community, and let's be honest, the teachers.
Yeah.
You all right now, it is no joke. And when I say there is stigma behind the mental health needs of educators, there is a stigma behind as an educator needing mental health support. And right now, it is harder than it's ever been. And so, I mean, every aspect of this plays a major role.
And I've been in a room, you know, a closed room full of educators, and said, you know, how many of us are drinking too much to deal with, you know, to self-medicate through the pandemic? Lots of hands go up. How many people are going to call their employee assistance program to talk about that? No hands go up. Right. And so there's also this cross-section of people who, far be it from me to say teachers are middle class, but, you know, they're certainly not paid as such, but they may be people who have never had to reach out for help before. And so not only do we have people who already don't trust the systems because they've reached out for help and not gotten it, or gotten it in the most unexpected way, with Child Protective Services showing up at their house, but we also have this group of people that is asking for help maybe for the first time. And so we want to make sure that they too have an easy linkage, and that they know it's anonymous, right? Because we have these school staff that are so courageous and stressed to the limit. And again, as Dr. Perry says, only a regulated adult can regulate a dysregulated child, right? So we need all of our adults to help to calm down our kids. And so that's really the hope, is that they use it too, is that staff use it too. My sister is a teacher in a large district, and I know that she's gone through some of the most difficult times of her life, and she's actually retiring at the end of this year. And I feel sad that other kids can't have her as a kindergarten teacher or as a librarian. But she is one of those who just can't do it anymore.
And I want educators to know that there is support out there. And STOPit Solutions is one of them. And I think having conversations with your districts or your schools and saying, listen, this is good for everybody. Because I think you're right. When you said the employee assistance, like how many people are going, there is this fear of, oh, I'm going to call and then somebody's going to find out and then I'm not going to be, everybody struggles. And I think that's one thing we have to normalize, is that mental health struggle does not mean anything other than it's a struggle, and everybody struggles. And there were times in my career that I struggled, that I should have reached out, that I didn't, because again, there was a stigma behind it. And I think what you're saying is so powerful, because, and Kerrie, you did do that quote by Dr. Bruce Perry, and Dr. Perry, I do debate that I may have said that first. I'm just going to say it. I have it noted like many years ago, but nonetheless, Dr. Perry says the same thing, right? And we also know that an escalated adult can escalate a regulated classroom.
An entire classroom.
A whole room. I mean, my hope is that in education as a whole, is we can see this is a community, has to be a community-wide effort, that supporting all of these pieces of the complexities of a school, the students, the families, the teachers, the community, has to be an effort that is supported. And this makes it so easy to support, because all of the pieces of the puzzle are there. So if somebody says, and for those of you who are watching, you can see the information on the bottom of the screen. For those of you who are listening, if somebody's in a district, there's a superintendent right now, there's a principal right now, there's a teacher right now, there's a paraprofessional right now listening, they're like, okay, yeah, like, how do I get a hold, and how do I tell my school or district about STOPit Solutions and HELPme? What would you tell them? How do they dig deeper into this?
Well, I can answer that one. First, you can always reach out to Kerrie or myself directly, and we will address that. The easiest way for many folks is to go to our website. You have it scrolling at the bottom there, Matthew. There's this big yellow button on literally every page. You can't miss it. It says Learn More. That will always get to us. About 12 people see that in view, and we do not let that go unattended. So you'll get a form on contact information, asking a little information about who you represent. We would love to respond to those. And there again, love personal inquiries to me or Kerrie. We'd be happy to respond ourselves as well. You can't avoid the yellow button, though, on our website. It's built with today's modern marketing techniques.
And I just want to say, Matthew, that one of the ways I never wanted, prior to the past year when schools were actually given almost enough to function, schools were always tight for money. So for me, my history is in doing some work with the Department of Justice. So for me, I write grants. I never want to approach a school and say, I have a solution without having money. Now I feel okay about doing that, but previous to now I didn't. And so we also help with grants and grant writing. We help people find the money. Yeah. If really, truly all of your ESSER funds are committed somewhere else, we can help with that. We just want to get this out there, and Matthew, now that I'm part of this, just this beautiful group of people who are working on trauma supportive schools, we have to work together, right? And we have to use whatever ways we can to get the word out, the message out, and we have to make sure we're all saying the same message. I just saw somebody pop up from Morocco, which is fantastic. I think Kerrie is acquainted with the Perry book, What Happened to You? I am, in fact. It's a wonderful book. Shout out to Bruce, but I think What Happened to You by Dr. Perry and Oprah it's a big way to get easy. It's an easy read to understand the brain, right? So Oprah went through quite a lot, and she really personalizes and brings the issues down to how that affected her as a child and how that affects her as an adult. And I think it's an important book for many, many people to read. But back to the trauma group, I'd like us to all be using similar language. I'd like us to all, be using our networks to help as many people as possible. And so that's really why I'm just so blessed that I get to work the little bit that I do with Parkhill and with STOPit Solutions, and that they allowed me to create the HELPme platform. Because when I think about myself, when I think about my fosters, when I think about my kids, I don't want any kids to hurt like that. And I know there are so many out there, and I know you do too, Matthew. And I wanted to mention one more thing about the isolation of being a principal or a superintendent. And we talk about educators not wanting to reach out for help, but there's no place. I mean, principals have equals up. I mean, they don't have, in many, many districts, there's only one principal. Most of the districts I work with only have one principal. There's only a person above them, and then others that they supervise. And so where do you go when you're struggling? And so I want you to hear that if you want this as a principal for your families, but also so that people who feel isolated, adults who feel isolated, can reach out, please call stopitsolutions.com.
Oh, and I will tell you, boy, that strung a chord with me about the isolation of principles. Yeah, majorly, right? And I was very fortunate to have a network of people that when I did struggle, and I also had people that held me accountable when I wasn't my best. So they would say, Portel, you're not your best right now. What's going on? And it wasn't a judgment. It was simply noticing that I was out of sorts. And so I think that's such an important thing. In principles, for some reason, we are a weird breed of people where we feel like that we have to carry all of our burdens and the burdens of the communities we serve, and it's not bearable. And I will tell you, I did it for 7 years, and if I didn't have the networks and the supports I had, I wouldn't have been able to do it that long. But I also want to say one more thing, that when Kerrie says they will help with potential grants and funding, that is true, you all. And a lot of people say that, and then they get you in. It's like, well, no. I said in a meeting with the district that I was a principal before Kerrie and I had really talked. She's like, I've been trying to get a hold of your district. I think this would be great for your district. I said in a meeting where Kerrie's like, okay, I'm going to help write this grant, and this will fund all of what you're trying to do. And she did. And the grant happened, and now we're just trying to figure out the pieces to get it all completed. But you all, she is very gifted in this space of supporting schools and districts to do the right thing. And what I would say is, this is the right thing. This is the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for your students. It's the right thing to do for your families. It's the right thing to do for your educators. And if you are a principal, it's the right thing to do for you. If you're a superintendent, it's the right thing to do for you as well. And I think the interesting part of this is, so many times we want to give to our kids, families, and community, but we forget about ourselves. And there's those moments in which we need that support. And it's okay to give to yourself. It's okay to have a platform for those you work next to, because it is needed. I promise you. I just watched a video today of a teacher who had resigned and why she had resigned. And basically she said, it's too much. It's too much. We can't do it anymore. And unfortunately, this teacher shortage is not new. This isn't new. This isn't something that's just started after the pandemic. This started way before the pandemic. And it's not a teacher shortage. I think it's more of a acknowledgement of the work of teachers, than it is a teacher shortage. It's people aren't being acknowledged. So anything, final words, how they can go to STOPit Solutions if they want to find you all on social media, whether the company or personally, depending on what you want to share. How do they find you on social media?
We're on all the major social media platforms. Don't know if we have a way to distribute that here, but you can see it on our website. You'll see our social media handles for sure. So we're very active on social.
I only have a personal Twitter account. So if you want to hear sassy me, you can follow me at Crackerson, KRACKERSON. Release the Crackerson is my screen name, because Matthew and a lot of his very good friends have taught me it's time. Disruptors unite.
Absolutely. And if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Principal List on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I am just my name. You are more than welcome to friend me on Facebook. It is not very exciting. You probably, matter of fact, you'll see a picture of my child's soccer game from last Saturday and a picture of the pond in my backyard. It's not that exciting. But if you're not a part of the Trauma Informed Educators Network, please check that out on Facebook. There is a group and there's also a page called the Trauma Informed Educators Network page. And then lastly, I pretty much almost begged for people to do this, and it worked last time. So I'm going to kind of beg again. Please, if you listen to the podcast, leave us a review. It helps us get this message out to a greater amount of people. I don't know if I mentioned it last time. I may not have, but we just surpassed 100,000 streams, you all. It is massive. It is so impactful. And so please, if you like listening to this show, just give us a review on whatever platform you utilize. It doesn't matter if it's Apple Podcast. It doesn't matter if it's on your Android. If you listen to it on Spotify, we are on all of those. So I want to personally thank both of you for being on this podcast. Thank you so very much, Parkhill and Kerrie, for the work you're doing and for the paradigms you are shifting. And for those of you who are listening live, thank you. For those of you on the podcast, as always, please, please, please wash your hands. And if you still need to, wear a mask. All right. We are still live, but I just stopped the podcast recording. Okay. So, Kareem, thank you so much from Morocco. This is the first time I think maybe we've had, I know it's the first time we've had live from Morocco. I know we've had a lot of Australia, New Zealand, other countries. And my brother actually lived in Morocco for 3 years. So I am very familiar with Morocco. And my niece actually learned to speak some Arabic while she lived in Morocco. So do have ties to Morocco. Cool. Thank you for joining, Kareem. I really appreciate it. And I hope you will come back next week. For those of you live next week, or no, this week on Thursday, I'm having Zaretta Hammond on the podcast from the Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain. This is a massive book. She is a brilliant writer and a brilliant thinker. I've actually heard her speak before. So please come back on Thursday to join with myself and Zaretta Hammond. And thank you all for listening. If Parkhill and Kerrie, you'll give me just 1 second and you'll stay on. Thank you, guys. I'll see you on Thursday.